your indie comic. And I have a special guest to dive into this one with me, Travis Gibb, writer of the Broke Down series, and is a big part of the Indie Advocator project that's going on Kickstarter, and is just an all-around helpful dude in the world of indie comics. Welcome to this live stream, Travis. What's up, man?
Hey, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so you shot me a message via Facebook Messenger yesterday, and you had a topic that you wanted to jump into, or you wanted to hear me riff on a little bit, because it's a topic that is a conversation that you've been having with a number of creators, especially indie creators, and I said, hey, that's a good topic. I'd love to talk about it. Why don't you come on and dive in and talk about this? So you want to just like set up the framework, like why is this something that's on your mind, and why is this a topic that you think the indie comics world needs to be considering a little bit more carefully?
Yeah, it came from like 3 or 4 messages. One was an artist. I was like, hey, can I do a cover? Or can you do me a cover? And he gave me some quotes. And then one of it was like, this much for this much, and then like a significant like $35 for if it was in diamond. And then you go to cons and everyone's like, well, is it in diamond? Because that's going to depend on my rate and all these things. So it's been coming up more and more of this desire that you're not a comic creator if you're not in diamond.
Yeah.
And I really want to kind of address that. And I talked to a lot of these guys about it. When you look at some of these smaller press guys and how many books they sell compared to the money that you're making on Kickstarter. And, I'm all about diamond and getting to that next level, but is it the right fit for them at this point in their career? Why should that be your top goal? Why not just making good books be your top goal for right now,
Yeah. And I think part of it is, in some cases, I think there is a lack of understanding, or a lack of sort of knowledge about what Diamond's looking for, what's required in it, but then also like, when's the right time to make the move to Diamond, or should you be making that move at all? So, I mean, like, I'm curious, as you've had these conversations and as you've engaged in these conversations, like, what are you hearing from creators? Like what are some of the things that they're saying about Diamond, or are there some things that you're seeing that they're not getting, or maybe?
Yeah. Well, the positive is, compared to, as I've been doing this for a long time, compared to when before everyone wanted their company to be in diamond. Yeah. Luckily, that voice has changed. There's enough options between like Aftershock and Scout and Arctic and all these places that are taking indie creators and doing some stuff. Alterna, so there's options to get your stuff out there that aren't Image, that kind of give you a similar deal to Image. So that's right. A really good thing. But the goal is they're willing to, spend all this money creating stuff to give it to somebody else in hopes of big things. But when you look at the numbers, they don't back up.
Yeah.
I'll use Antarctic, just because I just saw some stats on it earlier today. They did a horror anthology, which was really good. They sold 2,700 copies. No, 2,700 copies. That's not that many books when you factor in how much they're going to get versus how much you're going to get. You're not going to make anything per page. You're only going to make like $10 or $20 a page. When you factor in their costs and how much they pay for Diamond, you're factoring like $2 a book. It's getting pretty low once you factor in print costs. So it's those things where, is it for the money? Because if it's the money, it's never going to make it. Or is it for the exposure? And how much does that exposure get you compared to just networking at a con?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think there's a number of things at play and a number of reasons to potentially do it. And so something that we talked about a little bit before you jumped on here is just getting clear about what the goals is going to be a real, is going to determine whether or not that diamond distribution actually does make sense for you at your given stage. So I think you are right. If you are looking at diamond as the key to blowing up your profitability of your book, especially if you're an indie, especially if you're a first time publisher, or you're probably going to be sadly mistaken. I do, on the flip side though, like if your goal is to, let's say, write for Marvel or DC. There's a good chance that they're not going to hire you, especially if you're a writer. Now, I was having this conversation actually in a thread the other day, and there are some really, hot shot artists that get picked up right out of art school or off their profiles or off their sequentials. That does happen. But if you're a writer, especially, and you don't have any work that has actually been out through publishers that are non-Marvel and DC, you're probably going to have a tough time getting, getting on the radars of the publishers that the biggest publishers. So there are some people working in indie comics right now that their goal is to write mainstream comics or write big two comics or whatnot. And so getting out, being out on a Wednesday is definitely something that, would be one of the steps and milestones that you probably want to accomplish on your way to, getting those gigs. Now, when you're talking to some of these creators and having some of these conversations, what are you getting the sense that the main reasons they want to be in Diamond is?
That's making it. So it's not, that's the next step. And there is value in it, right? So if I can get a publisher, one of the bigger publishers, odds are it does help me even now, because I could petition to get pro tables, which could be given to me if I get a high enough caliber thing, right? So that gives me some free tables. It helps in, states like mine, Florida or California or New York, where they have cons every weekend. Right. It doesn't help, someone in the Midwest, who has 3 or 4 cons a year. But it does help that. But majority, they feel that if they get into one of these big ones, regardless of how much work they have to do, it's the exact same amount of work, they get none of the return on it. They're just kind of throwing money at their dream, which is not bad, but I would like to kind of grow with it. Hey, I've got a book. Why not I have them pay for some of the art? I'll figure that out once I can sell them on here's my idea and kind of grow to that. That's just my thought process. Yeah.
So, I mean, there are some other things as well. If some of your goals are if your goal is to have wide international distribution, you're going to have trouble doing that. Wide international distribution in comic book shops. If that's the goal, and there are some creators that's been their dream since day one. I want my book on the shelves of comic shops. I want people to be able to get it. Now, let's be honest, just getting in the Diamond catalog here, just being one of the 400, 500 new books featured in the Diamond catalog, in the previous catalog every month, does in no way guarantee that you're going to be in every comic shop. And in fact, Comic Stripe's been in there for years. I think, at most 20 to 25% of shops have will actually stock our books that could. And the reality is there's plenty of shops that don't stock all Marvel and DC books either. So that's definitely something to consider. But that said, if you want the opportunity to be in more than just a handful of shops, Diamond really is the only game in town. Right. Prior to Comics Tribe getting into Diamond, we actually did what I consider to be the sort of the step between I'm just selling myself at conventions or on Kickstarter or on my online shop and Diamond distribution. There's another sort of midway point in the middle of that is a step that I think a lot of creators skip over that they absolutely positively shouldn't. And that's micro distribution. That's where you create a product and an offer and make that offer to a small number of highly curated comic book shops and do a launch with those shops, in partnership with those shops. This is a strategy that actually put Sam Humphries on the map way back when with one of his books that eventually was then picked up by Image, and then he was picked up by Marvel and did a lot of work. But basically, he got about 50 to 75 shops to carry one of his books and do an official launch with it. And he did some variant covers for different shops and made a big deal. And it was kind of the book that spiked on eBay and got bleeding cool coverage and did all that stuff. Well, we followed that model because we sort of realized, well, if I can get one retailer to stop that believes in my book, I can probably get 5. And so that's what we did sort of locally. We found one retailer that believed in our stuff. And then it's this weird thing where if one retailer has something, other retailers want to be able to have that thing as well. Like they don't want to be left in the lurch. And so, when we got one, we were able to get 5. When we got 5, we were able to get 25. When we got 25, we were actually able to get up to around close to 50 retailers that carried scam number 1. And we did a micro distribution launch for that book, and it was it got us some buzz, it got us on the map. But what that also did was it enabled us to then be able, when it was time to pitch to Diamond, say, hey, look, here's the books that we have. Here are some of your best comic shops, your most indie supported sort of comic shops that have already said, yes, we carry these guys' stuff and we can sell these guys' stuffs. And that made it so that we had an incredibly compelling application. We actually, like the rep, when I had the meeting, they said, you know what, you're, for a first time pitcher, your application to us was one of the most professional that we'd ever seen. And so that was pretty good. But part of the reason with that is because we actually, when you submit your stuff to Diamond, it's not Diamond being like, oh, we don't like the cut of these guys, Gibb or Gibb in your case. Right. but it's they're looking at the product that you present them and they're saying, can we will this sell? And will this sell enough to make it worth us carrying it? And so I do believe that to a certain extent, getting to the point where you're producing work of the quality that you can send it in to Diamond, and Diamond's panel of people that literally do this thing all day, every day, sell comics. That's their job. It's not their side hustle. It's not their side gig. It's not the thing that they do when they're not at their 9 to 5 and sort of, play it. Like, this is what they do. They sell comics like 24/7. So if you get to the point where you can submit something and they're like, yes, that will sell, that should be looked at as a milestone, as an accomplishment, if the books that you're trying to sell are books that you believe the audience is there for in the direct market. Like, if that's your goal, I mean, there are plenty of people that make comics that just, there's an audience for them out there. It's just that audience isn't the people that are going to comic book shops on a regular basis. And so, there's plenty of people, especially in the webcomic space or others, build fabulous businesses, but they know that their book was never going to be, a big seller in the direct market. I think that's an okay thing. So I don't know, have you thought about it? The point being, there is value in submitting and getting an acceptance, at least just in terms of this is a milestone or a box I can check in terms of, oh, okay, the stuff that I'm producing is a passing grade, right? And again, 400 and like,
and
I don't want to.
Let me say something, because people may not know. That's not including Marvel. Just so you guys know, Marvel has a separate book.
Yeah, yeah. Marvel's not even included in this book. But I think it's important to recognize, though, that like, if you send in something and it doesn't pass muster over there, and you think it should, like if you are creating and you think your stuff deserves to be on the level of an Image book, or even on the level of, I don't know, like, who's in the back of the book here, Titan Comics, or Stranger Comics, like, probably some comic that every time I flip through this box, there's new comic companies I've never heard of. But if you think your stuff at least deserves to be on that level, and you're told no by, and the people that are doing this, like, they're Diamond reps, a lot of times they're former retailers, and they just say, like, this is not going to sell here. Like, that should be an indicator that, all right, either the direct market's not right for you, or the book itself, there's things that need to be improved about it. All right.
Yeah. Well, and there's a couple things for me. I'm in 11 comic shops now, and I did that, organically. And I even used it through errors. One of the things that you teach in one of your classes is, making an error an opportunity. And one of the things I've done is, every time I've made a mistake, I reship all the books with extras and ask them to bring the extras to their local comic shop. And that has produced things. And I've got a comic store in Texas and I've got a comic store in Colorado. Those are, I don't have any friends in Colorado or stuff. So it helps me grow in those areas, which is really, really cool. But, I'm going to leverage that at some point to get into, a Scout Comics or Image Comics saying, hey, I'm going to submit this. And I also have these are retailers that already support me. So you're already getting a small a base that I know would carry a book.
Yeah.
Especially my one title. But I did have a question specifically for you, because I think it's a good thing as a writer. I know that John Lee's, he did the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That was one of his bigger things early on. Did that help him at all with the sync market? I'm just kind of curious. These people have these dreams and they get their one shot. Does it really bring a whole bunch of new fans to John Lee's?
John, I don't want to answer entirely for John.
Okay.
I don't know that he saw like it's a weird thing where it's going to get you in front of a different a different type of person,
right,
or a different set of people. Did John's phone suddenly start ringing from Marvel and DC by getting a Turtles gig? No.
Right.
Did sync sales skyrocket because John wrote an awesome John Lee's story that had just happened to feature the Turtles? No. But it's another bit of credit. It's another
notch.
It's another notch in the belt, and it's another thing that that John is able to continue to send to editors and send out on his behalf. So it's definitely something that I know he was glad to do, and then it also, hey, it's paid work, right? It's work for that's a lot of writers' dreams, is to start getting paid. It's like most writers in the indie scene are used to paying for.
Well, you and I are from New
comics,
England.
right?
You and I are from New England, so obviously we have to write the Turtles at one point. That's a rule. Like, we want to, and then we give it to English people. I don't understand what's happening.
Yeah. I want to jump around and just check in on the comments here for a little bit.
Yeah.
Joe Mulvey watching said, "I'd never heard of an artist of a bump up diamond fee for work. Biggest factor for price is usually time." Yeah, that is something that it's interesting that you heard a couple people say, is this diamond? If it's diamond, I've got a different price than not.
It's actually lower.
Oh, it's lower. Okay.
Yeah. They're because so they could be in diamond. They're giving me a lower rate based on distribution.
Yeah.
And this is three artists who've said this in various times.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think part of that is the artist being smart in terms of like, all right, am I going to go draw this thing that's going to take me, 10 hours a page times 24 pages, going to take me 240 of my hours of the limited time that I have on this planet Earth. And then is this just going to sit on this person's hard drive and have a dozen like 100 copies that are going to sit in the shelf? Or is this person really going to get out there and really do all the things that it takes to get massive distribution? I guess I can see where that might be something that, especially if they're trying to build a resume and get featured and get hooked and stuff. So that makes a little bit more sense than a bump down. Niall over here says, look, if you sell 1,000 comics through Diamond, you're going to make roughly $1,000. You get about $1 a book. Some crowdfunding projects hit six figures with 1,000 backers. You really have to weigh the popularity of your book and what costs you want to carry. So one thing I'm going to say to Niall, and one thing that I think Comics Tribe has proved over our last few launches, and an attitude and a thing that I say all the time on the Comics Launch podcast, a bit of a broken record with this, is let's get out of either or thinking and go with like the improv thing of yes and, or this and that. All right, because you are 100% right. Like with those economics, if you sell 1,000 books through Diamond, you're going to make roughly $1,000 in profit. It'll cost, well, if you sell 1,000 books through Diamond, you'll probably make at $3.99. You'll probably actually make a little less than $1,000 because printing cost is probably not going to be, it'd probably be a little less than. You're going to sell it to Diamond for $1.69 or $1.59 at a $3.99 price point. And and it's gonna cost you maybe $1 a piece to ship. So you may even make a little bit less than that, right? But if you actually go do a crowdfunding launch, and most crowdfunding launches are not going to raise six figures. That's less than 1%. Will make six figures, but most will make 3, 4, 5,000, maybe 10,000. Some do make more. But if you roll your print run for Diamond and your print run for your Kickstarter together, then all of a sudden, the Diamond sales look like gravy on top, as opposed to and are less. It becomes more profitable, bigger pie overall. So that
was a pitch for Sync One, right? Sync One, the pitch was you're funding to fund the Kickstarter, the Diamond distributing, wasn't it? That one on the first Kickstarter.
Yeah, so for both Sync #1 and for Wailing Blade #1, we launched the Kickstarter before launched the Kickstarter before it ever hit Diamond. And another thing that people say was, well, isn't that going to ruin your Diamond demand? Isn't that going to ruin your direct market demand? Maybe if Marvel and DC did, it might. But for creators of our level, the fact that it was on Kickstarter, the fact that we did a massive amount of marketing for that, the fact that we got this book into people's hands, before it hit the direct market, meant that there were thousands and thousands of people that were at least vaguely aware of it, and hundreds of people that have purchased it and invested in it. So we found, compared to our previous launches of books that we directly sold first to the direct market and made available first to the direct market, we sold significantly more copies of Sync and a Wailing Blade than other Comics Tribe titles, and those were titles that were launched on Kickstarter before they were actually hit the direct market. So again, not this or that, this and that. Joe says, again, why deal with the overhead for printing costs for Diamond if you were accepted? The cost of 2,500 units to be printed is a lot for someone to deal with if printing costs can't be covered by sales to them. So the question is, Joe, so I want to just clarify and make sure that everyone here, I'm not saying that Joe doesn't know this, but I want to clarify, because I'm sure, I've learned, especially in the world of indie comics, there's no dumb questions, because there's many things that I didn't know how it works. But here's what's going to happen if you get accepted for Diamond, right? You get accepted, and then what Diamond's going to do is an acceptance as a publisher means that then you get to send them new series, and they get to review the new series and say, all right, yeah, we'll take this or not. If there's possibility that you could get accepted for Diamond, send them a new series, they look at it and be like, this book is trash. We're not even gonna list it. Right? That's so just even getting a publishing distribution deal with Diamond doesn't guarantee that every book and every idea that you have will get in the catalog. So that's one thing. But the second thing is, you're going to let's say they do say, yeah, all right, we accept this. Okay. And then what they're going to do is you're going to send them a cover and a solicit, and they're going to give you a little, 3 by 3 inch, 2.5, 3 inch spot in the back of their book. Okay. And retailers are going to have about a month to order from that spot. Of course, you could also do things like pay Diamond $2,500 to $3,000 for the ability to have a full page ad like this in the back of this catalog, but I don't recommend doing that, especially at our level, because that's going to be a good way to throw away money that you'll never see back. But the listing itself is free. And so then what's going to happen is 30 days after it releases in previews, you're going to have Diamond's going to issue you a purchase order, and that purchase order is going to be for whatever it's going to be whatever retailers ordered of the book, and plus a little bit of margin that Diamond says, okay, well, just in case this book has reorders or other things, we'll make it a little bit higher, right? And so then you're going to have about 60 days total. Usually Diamond usually wants it in about 30 days, but you're going to have a little bit of a window of a time to then deliver them the books. So most publishers don't actually print the books, Joe, until they get that purchase order. Okay. So you said the cost of 2,500 units printed is a lot to deal with if printing costs won't be covered for sales. Well, presumably you wouldn't print 2,500 units if you got an order for 500 copies. And in fact, in most cases, Diamond is not going to even issue you a purchase order if your book, if the numbers aren't significantly high enough so that they think that they can actually, that it's worth them printing it. But you are right that, going and printing 25, like I just had to write 2 checks yesterday in total of $3,000 for printing 2 new books. And those books aren't going to be released for a month or 2 months from now. And then I'm not going to get a check from Diamond for back for 2 months after that, or a month and a half, 2 months after that, before I actually get that money back. Right. And so, yeah, you do have to go, like you will be going into the hole. But the check that I'm going to get from Diamond is going to be significantly more than what I paid to print those books. So that's nice. All right. Now that doesn't always happen. There are some times when, your Diamond check, like if you had to do 1,000 copy print run for, let's say, for a trade, and Diamond issues you a purchase order for 200 books, that might not even cover the cost of the printing. And so that's where combining Kickstarter plus Diamond really makes things a lot more feasible for independent creators, because then we're getting the money first with the support of our backers. We're using that to make a product that's as good or better than what the big publishers are doing. And then we're also, when we get that product in hand, some of it goes to our backers, some of it goes to Diamond, and the overall pot is bigger. But I want to talk about another thing another sort of added benefit of being in Diamond, and that's the collector's market and the retailers that are out there that are interested in partnering with you on special editions. So I believe it would be significantly tougher for us to have a Larry's Comics or an artist like Frank Uzan. Be significantly tougher to get them interested in doing one of these limited edition covers. This one was a 350 copy print run. This one was a 550 copy print run we did for Larry's. If Wailing Blade #1, if the regular edition didn't get like an official release out through Diamond, through the direct market, and if there weren't a few thousand copies, I mean, I think this. We had 6,000 copies for the standard edition as the print run. If there weren't those out there in the wild, and this book getting sort of an official release date and sort of in the market, as it were, I don't know that we would have interest from retailers or collectors or artists or collector groups or any of the people that do variant covers in our variant covers. And just to be frank, this was an additional $3,000 in revenue by making these sales directly to those partners. And so that's another sales channel that is created when you are in Diamond. The collector's market, I believe there is a sense that the collectability of something does go up when you do have that legitimacy of a stamp of a direct market, whether that's perceived or correct or not. I mean, it's for debate, but I do believe it is there to a certain extent. I don't know, thoughts on that, Travis?
Yeah, I mean, you could even do it on a lower extent. I have multiple covers, and people love them. I've got Frank Uzan as a cover of mine. He does an artist edition, and it's a fold that I don't have one on me. It's on the wall, but there'll be a reflection.
Right.
You can get that, but absolutely, to get it into shops and to do that, they want to see it. And there is people, but just by doing that and building that collector's market, there's people who hit me up at cons and going, "Hey, do you do these things?" And it's not necessarily that they want it now, but they want to know if that's options in the future. So I have a handful of cards of people who want exclusive covers for their shop. The question is it going to be cost effective to them and me? And they're waiting and seeing, and I'm waiting to see,
Yeah. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I wanted to just jump in on this for Jeff. Jeff said the bottom 50 and the top 500 diamond have order numbers in the 1100 to 1500 range. He said you need to really have a really cheap cost per unit in order to not lose money on the diamond discount. I mean, that you're absolutely right, Jeff, especially when you're factoring the creation costs. I mean, if you're just looking at printing, the nice thing about offset printing is the more you print, the cheaper it gets, which is kind of which again provides an unfair advantage. You look at like Marvel and DC, you know, if their low tier books are doing 30,000, they're probably only paying 25 cents or 20 cents. I mean, because the toilet paper they use to print their books on, like they might only be paying 25 cents per book. And then they also have their advertising revenue, so that they're actually probably not paying anything for their books at those numbers. But what I can say is when you have comics like in the 2,000 to 3,000 to 4,000 range of sales, your cost per printing, it does drop kind of precipitously. So the more you sell, the better it gets. But you are right. Like, and Diamond a while back sort of said, hey, you know, if your book is not going to result in us cutting you a check for at least $2,500, we're probably not going to carry it. Now that's not hard and fast. So that usually means at $3.99, that usually means 1,500 copies. At $4.99, it means a little, like you can go a little bit less. But yeah, like a lot of times when books get below sub 1,500, it becomes hard to, it definitely becomes harder to sustain them if your only source of revenue is Diamond. But again, having a book in Diamond is going to help you with your online sales. All right. Is going to help you with the legitimacy of stuff. It's going to help you at conventions and other things. So again, I don't want to discount the effect of just having that stamp of approval and getting out there. Let's see what else. Yeah. So Joe says TKO is a new publisher circumventing Diamond, and they're shooting to go straight to retailers. It'll be interesting to see what they do long term. They also started with a big bankroll and some top talent, but still an interesting choice. Yeah, I mean, it is an interesting choice, Joe. And like I know you picked up one of their boxes. I've been meaning to actually go and grab that just to see what that experience is like. I mean, we do live in an age where we can connect with people, connect with customers easier than it's ever been. We can distribute easier than it's ever been. There's services and fulfillment centers and printing options are, you know, and I'm not even sure if TKO is digital or offset or what they do. I think they do own their own printing as well, or they have access to their own printing facilities. So they may have some sort of economies of internal scale that they're able to use or resources to do sort of their custom boxes and custom things. But yeah, the big bankroll helps, and it'll be hard to know, like, because I imagine they won't be terribly transparent with their numbers, or they don't have to be. But
yeah, CrossGen had a big bankroll too. I always say that when people talk about it.
Yeah. So just to sort of sum up, like, here's another thing that I want to put out though. Just when you're thinking about Diamond, because I think there's some creators that are like, all right, okay, I'm going to create my comic. I'm going to launch it on Kickstarter. I'm going to submit it to, I'm going to create issue 1. I'm going to launch it on Kickstarter. And I'm going to send it to Diamond. All right. Bang, bang, bang. I'm doing it in order. Just like Tyler said, I'm doing multiple channels and I'm, doing the right thing. Right. And for that creator, I would say, I would still slow your roll a little bit. And here's an important distinction.
Can I interrupt you?
Yeah, go ahead.
So back in the day, I don't know if it still goes this way. I haven't done Diamond in a long time. It used to be you had to have the second issue done before they even take the issue 1. They wanted to see that they was going for indie guys who haven't done anything before. Is that still a thing, or?
So I mean, it's obviously it's been a while since I've submitted and gone through the new creator onboarding process, but the bigger point that I want to make is Diamond's not looking for creators. and they're not looking for one-off books. They're looking for ongoing publishing partners. So if all you've got is one book done, or all you have is one series, like that's not really what they're looking for. Now, yes, there are some examples of creators that have, like your Terry Moores, that have just done one series, but done it like clockwork, and were able to get there. And you know, he got in sort of the early days of indie sort of indie comics and whatnot. But for the most part, they're looking for publishing partners. You'll see when you go to Diamond, like the catalog, it's listed, like you will be listed by publisher. Okay, so if you don't have a publishing company, if you don't have a publishing, all you have is a book. I think you've got two options. Either you can wait until you have more of a publishing entity and more stuff under your belt, or you can try to go through another publisher, whether it be, you know, you can start at the top at Image and work your way all the way down to, you know, you go through the phone book, which is, I mean, they call this the previous catalog a phone book, right? But here's a whole bunch of
Sure.
publishers in there that you could potentially pitch to. So that's a key thing. Diamond is looking for publishers. They're not looking necessarily for creators or for single books. There's an example of a creator inside the Comics Launch Mastermind who, for years and years, was submitting his books to Diamond and just getting rejected. It was getting frustrated. What he ended up doing, though, was by learning the skill of launching on Kickstarter, he actually helped another publishing company plan and launch and build their Kickstarter project page and run their Kickstarter for him, which got him sort of, hey, you know, you did an awesome job with this. If you want to keep working together, we've got a Diamond distribution deal, and we'll pick up your series and we'll distribute it for you. So that's sort of and he submitted it, and now the book is accepted and will be in Diamond and all that. So cool, like that's a cool development. But if you're just sort of like doing the one-off thing, that's something to keep in mind. And then the other thing that I would say, and something that we learned sort of the hard way, is having the series done or nearly done before you even solicit that first issue is absolutely key, because you're going into a market that feeds on the monthly distribution cycle. And let's be real, most independent creators cannot produce a comic monthly. Most independent creators can't produce 2 comics a year, right? It's just the reality of it. And so you are far better off to do the work in advance, get it done, and then when it's ready, you release it, you know, on a monthly schedule through Diamond, and wait. And the other thing that I'll say, some people are like, oh, but nobody's going to want to buy a book that I finished 2 years ago. Nobody, like most of the world, probably doesn't know that book ever existed in the first place, right? So I wouldn't let the fact that it was done at one point, you know, I mean, and this happens in other genres as well. Like all of a sudden, a series will get picked up on Netflix and pop up, even though it was on Lifetime last summer, you know, but now it's like all the rage, right? So, you know,
did you see a Scouts thing that they did where Metal Shark Bro?
Yeah, that they're soon with
the binge. So I'll explain it just in case you don't know.
I don't know the details.
It was like 20 or 30,000 is what they raised on the Kickstarter, just over their goal. But so Scout picked it up, and what they did was this thing called Binge. So it's a new franchise for them. So they came out with the first issue in Diamond. I think it was in the last Diamond. So anybody could buy the first issue. There was 2 variants. And then it had a little Binge logo, and then it goes directly into the trade. So the first is kind of like a teaser to get them directly in the trade. And I'm kind of curious of how it'll work, because it's a really good idea. It's kind of the way the world is working right now. They like the Netflix binge and things like that. But I will know that I talked to a distributor, to a comic store about it, and they're like, oh, we just thought the issue 2 and 3 didn't sell well, so they went straight to the trade. So
yeah, it's going to be an interesting thing. Like, and I actually have James Hake from Scout. He's coming in to do a presentation to the Comics Launch Mastermind next week, and I'm looking forward to hearing and picking his brain on some of these things, because, yeah, I mean, there's we're in a fun time where there's a lot of publishers out there trying stuff, and there's a lot of opportunity out there, and a lot of creativity out there, not just in the books themselves, but in the selling and the marketing and the packaging and the producing of the books. So that is one of, and that's actually one reason why just being so focused on Diamond isn't my top recommendation. And that's because what Diamond, the expectations for how Diamond works and what you can sell things through and what you can sell them for is somewhat limited, right? You know, whereas on a Kickstarter campaign or on your own online shop, you know, you can put out some pretty crazy orders for, and you know, sell 15 units of a collector's box for $150. And there you've made just as much in terms of total revenue as you would selling your book potentially through Diamond. So, right. But I'm a big fan of, you know, let's incrementally, as you grow, as you build your foundation, as you build the quality of your books, let's expand your sales channels, expand your reach, and eventually, and let's not ignore the opportunity to get your books on the shelves of places where people every single day are walking in to buy comics, and the people behind the counter are hand selling comics every single day, because most of us only have so many hours in a day to sell or promote our comics. And most of us, that time is very limited, especially if we want to actually keep making them. So having our books out there into the world and other people invested in selling those as well is an important milestone, I think, in a career.
Yeah.
Just jumping back to Joe. Diamond did scare me a few years back since they pre-screen our stuff, but I know we couldn't keep up with the demand at the time. Even now, I feel we could not keep up. Right now, I'm happy with Comixology, but I'm still fearful of the schedule of Diamond. So what you want to do there, Joe, is forget about the schedule of Diamond and determine what the schedule of Joe is, and then put them out. Now, so what you would probably have to do is get out of your head that that you're going to be doing the Marvel and DC model of I put out a monthly ongoing book, or I put out even a bi-monthly ongoing book. Instead, I would focus on kind of what we're doing with the Sync model, where when Sync comes out, it's monthly or thereabouts. But when it's not coming out, that's because we're back in the lab and John's writing new scripts and Alex is drawing new books, and we're going to wait until we have a couple in the can before we start soliciting again, so that it comes out on a monthly schedule. But that doesn't mean it has to come out every single month, right? Saga did this, right? And Saga's with this third biggest publisher in the world, but they take breaks off in between story arcs. And so that's the approach that I would take. So if you got to the point, Joe, where you had a series that you're confident, like this is on par with the top 500 books that are out each month, and I would get to the point where, all right, that series is complete, and then I'm going to pitch that series and myself as a publisher to Diamond, and then I'm going to release that series on a relatively monthly basis, and you'll see. Hopefully, you'll see that work out for you.
The other thing I just realized that may be useful for Joe using Comixology. A lot of people, one of the big trends in Kickstarter is we all do these digital deluxe versions to get it to like 63 pages or whatever. You know, you could take that and throw that immediately on Amazon Direct. You know, you can throw that and make that an Amazon exclusive with that as a print version of this digital deluxe. And since you're not actually printing it, they're printing it on demand, you're just going to make your money on that end, and you can just print them out. They'll print them and you'll just get a check. So you can have a new avenue. You can have a new special edition of your book at no cost to you, which I think is really valuable for something you should have already done the work for if you sent it out to your backers.
Is Amazon Direct the new Amazon CreateSpace? Or
yeah, it's CreateSpace is Amazon Direct. It's actually Kindle Direct is actually
Kindle Direct. Okay,
but it's the same thing as CreateSpace. So you put it up there. You need 64 pages. That's the minimum of it. And they'll make it and they'll print it and they'll send it out to you. You're not going to make a lot per copy. You'll make like a $1.50 to $2 depending on what you price it at. But you can make it exclusive to Amazon, and you've already created the content. So why not reuse it? You know, it's the relaunch, as you like to call it.
Do they actually do color too with that?
Yep.
Or is it really?
Yep, full thing.
Have you seen any books that have come from that?
I just ordered one, so I'll show you when I get it.
Yeah, definitely do that. I'd like to check it out.
Yeah,
Cool.
I just ordered it to try it out. I just realized that I was actually showing, as many of you guys know, I do web design and marketing, and I was showing someone Amazon for a book, and I was like, they're like, well, I haven't finished my book. So I was like, all right, I'll put my book up there. I threw up my comic book, and I was like, oh, it works, and let's do it. Let's try it out.
Yeah.
They actually have graphic novel size, though. If you ever get to the graphic novel, they have full graphic novel print and everything.
That's cool. Yeah. I mean, it's been like a dozen, it's been like, I don't know, 10 years since I printed anything with CreateSpace. And I know they've made some changes, but I'm sure they've updated some things and done some cool stuff. All right, cool. Just let's see what Joe, my man, Joe Mulvey. Joe Mulvey, artist of Wailing Blade, Man Among Men. That's his book right here. He says, I'm talking with a lot of retailers today. A floppy miniseries, then trade with a break, then more stories, the most successful model they have for indies. For independent books, the readers will wait and make the shops support them as destination shops. So get the book done and then get it into the diamond machine. Yeah, I mean, that's, knock on wood, that's what we're trying to do with the Wailing Blade series. That's what we've done with Sync. And you know, the one thing about the comic shop is like they trade in these bad boys. And I know there's a lot of creators that like, well, you know, why don't I just jump right to the graphic novel? Like, why bother with my single issues, especially if they're not going to be ordered that much? Well, one thing that I've found is that, you know, even on our lower selling titles, our orders for #1 almost always do pretty well. And that's because, let's face it, a comic shop is always going to be willing to take a shot at a #1, and a comic shop is always going to like all it takes is like one Walking Dead every 20 years to make comic shops realize that we can't be in the business of missing out on a launch of a new title. And so they're all about, you know, taking a shot on first issues because it's a relatively small investment. And remember, comic shops are buying things and on a non-returnable basis. So it's more likely that you're going to get them to take a chance on your single issue. If it's good, if they like it, if people buy it, then they're going to come back and grab that trade. Whereas if you just went the trade and it's, you know, $20 and it's going to cost that retailer 10, they may not put their money there when they have more sure bets. And so that's, and part of this is just earning the trust of retailers over time. So that's definitely something to consider as well. All right. Yeah. So, I mean, just to sort of recap some of these things, I think, what are some of your top takeaways or top pieces of advice just from this discussion, Travis?
The big thing is just keep what you're doing, realize that diamond doesn't save you. And I think that that's the key, and I kind of felt that, and I really want to talk to someone who's done the diamond route. It's just an extra avenue. It's just another step instead of viewing it as, it's the end all be all. Like then it's diamond marvel. It doesn't work that way. Right. Yeah. That's the big, the other step is, realizing some of the things that I didn't know, because I always thought you had to have the comics printed beforehand, before the order. That helps knowing that I could get there. You have a good credit, you can have a credit card that can cover that little amount for the time being until you can get that diamond check. I know it's like 3 months out after you do that, but those are really good things that make diamond a little less scary for a new creator for me. For me, I'm still going to go my route. I'm going to finish my book, and then I'm going to submit it to one of the people who already have distribution, see if they can get it into diamond for me, and go from there.
Yeah, I think that's a route that makes sense. Not putting the cart before the horse and getting your series done should be the primary vehicle. And I think we are blessed in a day and age where we've seen people do the serialization on Kickstarter strategy, and it's worked fine. I mean, you got your first 2 issues, both made several, both made over $1,000, right?
4 and 3.
4 and 3. Like rewind 10 and a half years prior to Kickstarter, and the ability to just go online and raise that money for a book that's not done, that's not in hand. Like it's inconceivable. So understand that we are still we're in a golden age of the ability to make cool stuff. And funding in and of itself should not be the thing holding you back. But the time for diamond is when you've got the series done and you're ready to move forward and really step it up there. All right. Well, thanks for joining me on this one, Travis. I really do appreciate your time here. And thanks for bringing the topic here. I will just say tonight, if you didn't get enough of me today and you want some more, I am doing a live info session on the Comics Launch Mastermind group that's going to be starting up in July. We're sort of adding some new seats and adding some new creators to the mix. If you go to comicslaunch.com/mastermind, you can get on the interest list, and there's also a link to go register for the live info session. I'll be on at 8 p.m. EDT, and we'll be talking about it and going through all the details, answering questions, and hopefully getting some people to apply, because applications will be open as soon as the first info session is over. So thanks everybody for watching. Good luck distributing your comics however it is that you are doing it. You guys, it's all about just making something and then getting it into as many hands as humanly possible. Thanks so much for watching. Can't wait to see what you all launch next.